morning, ladies and gentlemen. This happened last November. We had planned a trip to a place called Ramnagar. Ramnagar is incidentally a nice place, but the main reason it attracts nature lovers and rock climbers especially is because of its beautiful rock formations. Incidentally, the film Sholay was shot here. It was a sudden plan, so we could not get tents, but we got everything else, rope and other climbing equipment. And yes, we forgot to carry more than one torch. 8 of us were supposed to go, provisions were carried for 8, but when we landed up at the bus stand, it so happened that only 4 of us turned up, 3 girls and 1 guy. We waited for our truant trekmates for some time. Ultimately, we boarded the bus for a place called Basahalli, from where we had to trek to Ramnagar, and we boarded the bus fretting and fuming. Throughout the bus journey, I was very angry. I was also worried about how 3 girls and 1 guy what we were going to do in an unfamiliar place, leave alone spend a night in the jungle. That too, how we would fend for ourselves against wild beasts and perhaps wilder human beings. I was thinking about all this when the bus suddenly reached a stop. Some of my best friends were supposed to accompany us on this trip, and all I wanted to do was just go back and strangle the neck for what they had done to us. So when the bus reached a stop, Sridhar signaled us to get down. As soon as we got down, I looked up. Then for a full minute, I stood speechless. There was total silence around, total darkness, you couldn't see anything ahead, and high above, there was a jet black sky, star-studded, countless stars, and the sky seemed clearer and nearer than what it seemed back home. That minute, all anger drained out of me. I couldn't get angry even if I tried to. I was simply, truly happy. Then I realized why the twinkling little star up above the world so high shone like a diamond in the sky to the poet. We started trekking into the wilderness. Then, as we moved along, we saw those magnificent rock formations. Actually, I'm not exaggerating, there was this rock formation which seemed like a giant man with a fat paunch lying across the land, with a not so giant puppy with floppy ears flopped down at his feet, and many other not so outstanding rock formations. And as we moved deeper and deeper into the jungle, we started getting jittery. It's because we couldn't see anything else except the dim circle of light in front of the one person holding the torch. Then we started discussing a place where we would settle down for the night, and then I got the real creeps because Sridhar suggested that we'll sleep in caves so that we'll be protected if it rained. I would hear none of it because I was sure that a bear or some wild animal might decide to come and cuddle up next to me, and then I'd die of heart attack. Ultimately, we decided that we'll sleep on an open rock, and this place where we selected was a group of rocks. We had to climb up to the middle rock, which was large and wide like a large bed. We brought out our sheets and blankets and sweaters and all that, laid it out, and we were just about to sleep when we heard a strange sound. We had been to the jungle before, so we are not the kind who scare easily, but this sound was different. It was a cross between a human scream and a low, deep growl. We were scared out of our wits. And it would start for some time, go on for some time, then there would be a short silence, then it'd start all over again. The effect was chilling. We somehow managed to huddle together, hair standing on end. we couldn't even talk coherently because now we heard footsteps right behind the rocks where we were sitting, just to the right of us. Then what we did was we managed a quick discussion. We thought we couldn't obviously go back because the call was coming from exactly the same direction along which we had walked till now. So whatever it was right there. We couldn't go forward where a temple lay a kilometer ahead because that was where the water was, and it was supposed to be bear infested jungle. Then ultimately the cave was brought up again, and I thought I'd die rather than lay trapped there for the night. So we settled on the rock, decided to risk everything on that rock. Then what happened is we just made an arrangement for who has to stay guard and all that. We didn't have anything with us, totally unprotected. We couldn't make a fire because it had rained that day and the ground was fully wet. We couldn't find dry wood. Then we thought that Rupa and Sridhar would stay watch till 3:30 in the night, and then later on me and my friend would take her. Our defense strategy was of course nothing except praying and then die fighting, perhaps, because we were sure that it was a bear, but no one voiced the thought. And by now we could hear the animal call from the other side, like it was circling the spot. The next thing I knew is that I fell asleep and got up at 4. I looked next to me and found Sridhar sleeping soundly by my side. I was shocked. The idiot had fallen asleep. Then I listened. I heard the sound again. The animal was still there, but for some reason it was not approaching us. It had no intention of approaching us. I woke Sridhar up, and then we thought we'll let the other two sleep and stay watch. Then go around exploring after it became daybreak. This didn't happen, of course, because it was already 6 o'clock by the time the other two got up, and then we had to get around this rock climbing schedule. But that was a memorable night. The day was great, of course. We did all the basic techniques. We chimneyed, then rappelled, and climbed dangerous heights for beginners. Ultimately, in the evening, we called it a day. We thought we'll have tea and then go ahead, start trekking to Ramnagar. Meanwhile, in the course of the day, an officer had come to visit the temple. He had seen us, and when he had gone back after checking that we hadn't yet arrived, he sent a jeep to pick us up. So it so happened that 4 to 5 people landed at 5:30 in the evening and scolded us properly and told us that at least even a group of 10 couldn't afford to linger there after 6 o'clock in the evening. After 6 o'clock in the evening, then they told us that the area was infested with bears, and people getting killed by bears was not a rare occurrence. Then you can understand that we didn't give the slightest hint that we had slept the previous night there. Totally unprotected. A bear had actually circled the spot, but for some reason it had decided to let us alone. And inside us, while we were returning back, we were feeling slightly relieved, but again slightly disappointed that we hadn't trekked back and had a face-to-face encounter. Thank you.
My name is Sandeep Srivastava. 26th October 1991 is a day I'll never forget in my life. Not because it happens to be a special day, but because an untoward incident happened in our family. Something that our family will never be able to forget. We had a dog that was 5 years old. It was brought to the house when it was just a couple of days old. The dog was small, brown in color, had distinct features, and was very playful. Our whole family was very attached to it. It so happened the previous evening that my mother had gone to the market to buy provisions for the house. she returned late the same evening and decided that she would tell the servant to take out the provisions from the car the next morning. I still remember the dog fooling around in the garden, playing with my father, and later sitting in one corner during breakfast time. At around 11:30, the servant went to the car to take out the provisions. He did not realize that the dog was following him. As he opened the door, the dog jumped into the car, and the servant, after taking out the provisions from the car, locked the door. After about 3 hours, my father realized that he had not seen the dog, nor had he heard the bark. So he started searching the whole house, but without success. As a last resort, he decided to check both the cars. As he opened the door of the car, he saw the dog stone dead on the back seat. Dear friends, this was the first time I had seen both my parents in tears. Believe it or not, losing a pet is as painful as losing one's brother or sister. If you ever decide to bring home a pet, always think of what a personal loss it would be when it passes away. For even today, my mother hasn't been able to overcome that incident. And for me, I will never bring a pet ever again in my life. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm Sapna Thomas. The incident I'm going to talk about is a quirky little event that happened in my life. And it happened when I was about 10 years old. And the other people involved in this are my cousins, Tony, who was 21, his sister Nisha, 16, another cousin called Mohit, who was just about 8, and me, innocent 10. And we had all gone to Coorg for our holidays, and our parents were away for a day. So the four of us thought of having an adventure. So we sneaked off the car without anybody's permission and went to Nagarhole Wildlife Sanctuary. Now in this sanctuary they allow the cars to private cars to go into the sanctuary provided you have an armed guide with you. And this is what we did. And we were having a good time till we turned into a small side road. And towards the right of us there was a clearing. And in this clearing there were 2 big elephants and a baby elephant. And Tony, who was driving the car, stopped the car, and we looked at the elephants looked at us, everything was peaceful. All of a sudden the cow, I don't know what happened, she decided to take a dislike towards us. She charged towards the car, and I remember I was sitting by the passenger side, and I could see this enormous trunk reaching into the car, and the next minute I was in the other end of the car, crouching on the floor and screaming my head off. And now all this happened in a span of about 5-7 seconds. I remember Nisha desperately rolling up the windshield. Tony's hands were trembling so much that the keys fell off, and he was like groping on the floor, and like Nisha was like screaming like start the car, and the elephant in the meantime was like she was just groping around all over the car. I don't know whether maybe she's trying to make up her mind or what. And meanwhile the guide was trying to fire into the air, but the rifle was jammed. I don't know what happened, he couldn't do anything about it. Finally, Tony got the key into the ignition slot after holding both his hands together and floored the accelerator, and we took off. And right on the nick of time because the elephant charged then. And for a minute, we had this elephant trundling behind us. We drove for a minute like that. Then we lost sight of the elephant. We were just congratulating ourselves that we got away scot-free. Suddenly the car started swerving to the right, left, and Tony stopped and said, God, I lost control. I think the car tire is punctured. And all of us were panic struck for a minute. I mean, we just froze in our seats. And the next instant reaction was just look back to see if the elephant was following us after all. And she wasn't in sight. We got out of the car, and after a lot of cursing, fumbling, muttering, we managed to change the tires. And we got in the car, got home. Then finally our parents asked us, how was your day? And I bet they never got such non-committal answers ever in their lives, because we couldn't tell them that we did go to Nagarhole and what happened in our lives. And now why I'm talking about this incident is, the wonderful part of this incident is I was so petrified while it happened. I was terrified. But now I can laugh at it. it really brings color to my life. And I like to end by saying the follies of youth. Without them, life would not be as memorable.
I am Saptagiri. I am going to talk to you about an incident which is not very special, but an incident of childhood. Childhood especially, we have many incidents happening that have an air, an aura of mischief and innocence. This is an incident which happened to me and my brother. We were in our I was in my third standard and my brother was in his first standard. We used to study in a public school, in a boarding school in Madras, but my parents used to stay in a village. So every time we finished our vacations and we were going back home, going back to the school, we used to enact a drama. The objective was to postpone going to the school. So what we would do is the morning would start, like early in the morning. We would wake up earlier than the time decided for us to go. We'll be waiting for our parents to come and wake us up. We will actually be awake, looking at the clock, thinking that the clock would go more forward, so that we'll miss the train. We had to go by car to another town from where we used to catch another train, and then we used to think of lots of things like, I am from a Nellore district which is famous for all these cyclones and all. So we used to expect, let the cyclone come today and let the thing happen. And so anyway, our parents used to wake us up, so that first step used to be foiled, and then we used to go into the bathrooms. There we used to delay ourselves. Then after that, one person used to accompany us always. That person, he was actually my dad's subordinate, and what happened was, after we get into the car and go, we think of how the car breaks down and nothing happens, and then we go into the train station. The train is always early in the morning, so we expect the train to get late. But the train never gets late. In this Indian Railways always happens like that. When you want the train to be late, it won't be late. It comes early onward. So we never miss the train. We always used to go on time. But this particular time, what happened was we have invented a new idea. After we went to a place called Gudu, from where we had to catch the train, I told that person who was accompanying us that I forgot a book at the village. So we have to go back to the village. He said, what is there? It's just a book. I said, no, the book is very important. If the book is not there, I can't do my studies at all. It's a waste going to the school. And then that man, he took me back to the village, and then the whole day was spoiled. But then again, next day, we had to start back and go back to the school. So it's memorable in a way because I just smile at the incident because it was done out of innocence and the mischief that was involved in it when I was a kid. So that is why it's a memorable incident to me. That's all. It's not the most memorable incident, but it's a memorable incident to me.
Hello, I'm Shivakumar Menon. When I was in class 9 in St. Thomas School, Calcutta, we had a subject in our curriculum called SUPW. When in its expanded form, it was social, useful and productive work. But we students used to call it some useful periods wasted. Our teacher, one Mrs. Verma, was very influential in the social circles of Calcutta. So one fine day she comes to class and tells us that she's invited Mother Teresa to come to our school to address us. At this point, considering the disdain we had for the subject, we weren't particularly enthusiastic about it. But since we were responsible for welcoming her to the institute and arranging for her to occupy the seat and all, we went about it in right earnest. On the particular day, Mother Teresa came to our school, and I remember I'd seen a lot of her in newspapers, in media magazines, in movie clips, but I was totally surprised when I saw her in reality. Here was a lady who was frail, thin, so unbecoming. Like she was totally in contrast to the hype that there was there around her. She came in, occupied a seat, there was the welcome address, and then she went on to the stage. She had no commanding personality. Her voice was very soft, but when she started speaking, there was this aura about her. There was an aura of importance. of being something greater than what ordinary human beings are. We were enthralled, to put it in another way, we were mesmerized by what she was saying. We could just listen to her without concentrating on anything else. And by the time she finished her speech, the whole audience was in raptures. We were all clapping wildly. And then it was time for her to leave. And as I was escorting her back to the van, I went up to her and I told her, "Thanks, mother, for coming." And she just looked back, smiled at me, kept her hand on my head and said, "God bless you, son." That's one moment I'll never be able to forget, because it brought out a person's humility, a person's need to communicate to another human being. Thank you, friends.
My name is Srikumare. Today I am going to speak about the fulfillment of a desire which I had in my mind a long time. When I was a child, I always used to be ill. I had malaria, I had tonsillitis. When I was born, I had skin tight. My neck was a little twisted. So with all these things, I always frequented the hospitals. So it so happened that whenever my father used to go anywhere else, I wouldn't go with them. I couldn't go with them because I would always be ill. So when they decided to visit Taj Mahal, I couldn't go with them at that day. So after that, from Delhi, I went to Andaman and Nicobar, stayed there for some years, and then went to Kerala. So everywhere my friends would ask, "You are in Delhi, where have you gone to places?" I would say, "No, I have not seen." They would ask me, "You have not seen Taj Mahal?" I would say, "I haven't seen Taj Mahal." So it became a sort of obsession to me to see the Taj Mahal, to visit that place just for the sake of it, just to answer my friends that I have seen it. So the chance came for me last September, when I went there, when my aunt and my sister came with me, and they decided that we will go to Taj Mahal. So we boarded the bus early at 6 o'clock. And then we went to many tombs like Fatehpur Sikri, which was built by Akbar for Jahangir and all, and many other forts and tombs built by kings of the medieval age. Then we went to, by the time we went through all this process, the day was very hot and we were very tired. And my aunt who was not so young, who was a little old, was very much tired. We had to walk a distance to Taj Mahal from the bus, and she somehow managed it. And then we had to go through the usual security check to get inside the Taj Mahal. So I was really wondering, was this effort all worth it? Well, when I went inside, I couldn't find much change inside me. My aunt and my sister asked me, "Isn't it beautiful?" Well, I gave them a full covered explanation that it is really beautiful. After that, I went inside and saw the tomb of Begum Mumtaz and Emperor Shah Jahan in all the places. We went around it. Everyone around me was enthusiastic. Every soul was struck by its beauty. That's what my aunt said. But I was just the opposite. I couldn't find any beauty in this thing. Because later when I came out, I analyzed myself. I tried to look into myself. Was it the Taj Mahal I was seeing? Well, I would like to say that it was not the Taj Mahal I was looking at. It was a desire. It was a desire to fulfill myself. The trying to fulfill my desire, that's all. And not the Taj Mahal I was going to see. Well, I tried to explain this to many people, but I would never, because I always thought that they would think me crazy. And I'm really thankful to all of you to having given me a chance to explain my desire. Thank you.